Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary, starting with one of my favorite shows, Big Brother. In this episode, I'm chatting about Celebrity Big Brother Season 3, Episode 4. So tonight, they pick up on the two main alliances that were formed, the formation and the athletes. They also remind us who won the power of veto, which was Carson. And then they showed or reminded us about the curse that came with the Mon Juan bag, which ultimately put Todd Bridges on the block. Out of Teddy and Todd Bridges being the nominees on the block, Teddy was voted out 5-3. Needless to say, she wasn't happy, but Misha was. By now, this episode puts them on day 10 in the house. Teddy's picture is grayed out or goes gray, and Mariah is very happy to survive the nomination. SNL Chris is trying to convince America that he didn't get Todd on the block with the Mon Juan curse because he snores. And there's a little bit of backstory there. I think in the premiere night episode, if I'm not mistaken, they made it a point to show us that SNL Chris was not happy with Todd Bridges snoring. And then in the diary room session in today's episode, he tried to say, well, that's not why I wanted him on the block. And do we really believe that? No. Okay. So Misha was happy that Teddy was voted out. Carson, Shayna, Cynthia are now targeting Misha. Shayna said that she went with the house. Oh, let me back up. Misha was happy that Teddy was voted out. Carson, Shayna, and Cynthia were not so happy. Carson and Cynthia were not so happy because they thought that Shayna would vote the same way that they voted. And Shayna was trying to convince them that it didn't matter what her vote was, because if it were a tie, Misha would break the tie and wind up sending Teddy home. Anyway, so she chose to just go with the house. That's what she says. So Shayna said she went with the house. I think she's definitely playing the game. I love it. But nevertheless, Shayna is now worried about Cynthia. Yet she showed her loyalty to Misha and NSYNC Chris, right? So it shows where her loyalties are, or where they lie. And then shortly after that, they showed us a clip of day 2 when Shayna and NSYNC Chris made a final 2 deal. So that was pretty interesting to me. And I also find it interesting that on premiere night, NSYNC Chris made a final 2 deal with Todrick. So he's playing the game as well, but that's what we thought. Let's see. Cynthia is shocked and saying that she followed her word and blah, 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 blah. And now she's saying she don't know if she can trust Todrick in the game. Moving on. Meanwhile, Todrick is trying to do damage control because the vote of 5-3 to vote Teddy out basically showed everyone's cards and where they stood in the house. And like I'd mentioned in the last episode, Carson, Cynthia, and supposedly Shayna, I think she's playing like she's with them, but they are all on one side. If you look at how the house is divided. And then Misha, NSYNC Chris, Todrick, Lamar, and Shayna, right? We hear Shayna again, are on the other side of the house. But technically, the athletic alliance is Misha, NSYNC Chris, Todrick, and Lamar. But now Shayna's being pulled in, so on and so forth. Okay. Well, I shouldn't say Shayna's being pulled. Well, she is being pulled in and used now because she made her plea the night before just so she wouldn't be a replacement nominee, which I thought was good gameplay, right? She kept herself off the block. So now she's in Misha's good graces and part of that other side of the house. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, they... in terms of placement of everyone else, they use Mariah as a vote, but she's not technically in their alliance, the Athletes Alliance, nor is she technically on the other side of the house either. And then SNL Chris and Todd Bridges are somewhere in the middle, right? We see more and more as Todd starts to awaken in the game that he's more so in alignment with the athletes side of the house. Like he's close to Lamar, he's close to NSYNC Chris, so he's more so on that side of the house. But technically SNL Chris and Todd Bridges are like in the middle. They're not technically in either alliance, but they can be used. Their votes can be used. All right. So then we move to the next HOH, which is named Rotten Potatoes. There was a potato meter. Ultimately, there are 3 stations, and they roll the ball with the attempt to score the highest number. There are numbers on each of the boards, and obviously they're trying to roll into the highest numbers. So the numbers go up in order. I don't think they're, like 1, 2, 3. They go up in order, so the ball has to go further down the board to get the higher number, right? And the boards aren't just straight. The first board, I think the first 2 boards had like a curve, and then the last board was like a beam, so they had to roll the ball down the beam. I thought the competition was pretty cool. And as part of that competition, they get reviews as part of, to measure how they did in the game. So as an example, Todrick, he did okay, but his review was tater tots. Lamar, he got Yukon Gold as his review. And then NSYNC Chris, because he scored so high, his review was Spud-tacular. You see how they all related to potatoes? I thought that was funny. I don't know. It's kind of cheesy. Anyway. Also, we saw that Todrick may be athletic after all, because he showed America that he definitely knows how to tumble. He did a round off into a backflip. And that takes some type of athleticism. So maybe him being in the athletics or athletes alliance is where he belonged. And NSYNC Chris, that would leave NSYNC Chris as the only non-athlete. All right. Let's fast forward to Cynthia. When she started her turn, she said, "I don't know what's going on here." And I wanted to say, "Yep, girl, we know." We know you don't know what's going on. I don't need to keep reminding us. We can see it. But Todd Bridges, I don't know what he was doing. He was locking in low numbers like 9 and 6. The number he needed to beat was 75. And so logically you would lock in, like you would try to roll for the highest numbers and then lock in the highest number as possible. And it's time, by the way. So maybe he was confused because it was timed and he was trying to hurry up before the time ended, but he was locking in low numbers. And that gave the other house guests, or a couple of them, the impression that he was trying to throw it. But you guys, I was so confused with him in this competition, considering the fact that I'm rooting for him. And I said that I thought he would play the game smart, like he would be smart in the game. I don't know what was going on in that competition, but that had me scratching my head. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening, Todd. Okay, and then NSYNC Chris won the competition. He is the new HOH. And the first thing I thought was, I know his son is at home saying, "Who wants to see my HOH room?" I remember in his intro on premiere night, his son was ready to say that because they was teaching him what to say. So I think that would be good for his family to see. Anyway, NSYNC Chris wins. And of course, Misha, Todrick, and Lamar are happy since they are all in that one alliance, the Athletes Alliance. And remember, they showed us a clip of him, NSYNC Chris, and Shayna making a final 2 deal on day 2. So she's happy about his win as well. All right. In the next scene, NSYNC Chris goes to his alliance and asks what they think about him putting up Mariah. And this doesn't sit well with Misha, and she is targeting Carson, right? Of course, after he hears her thoughts, he goes right to Shayna, and they both agree that they think Misha is trying to run the house, and it's his HOH, and he needs to do what's best for his game, and so on and so forth. He wound up making an assessment, he meaning NSYNC Chris, and his assessment of the house was that Misha and Todrick are on one side, Carson and Cynthia are on the other side in their respective alliances, and he thought that he would target who he wants, which is best for his game, and in his mind, he thinks Mariah, and let the other two pairs go after each other. He doesn't have to get that blood on his hands. He'll keep them, each of the pairs, in the game, let them go at it. And honestly, I thought that wasn't a bad assessment, and I think it's smart for him. And in terms of letting each of the pairs go after each other, I thought that was smart, a smart game move. Right? Now, him targeting Mariah, I don't know if that's necessarily smart. But we'll talk about that in a second, or later on in this episode. Let's see. Then we see that Misha worked hard to plant the seed that Carson is a threat. Like when she had her conversation in the gym with NSYNC Chris, she was pushing that Carson is the threat. He's the threat. And she just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, which I think is true to a certain extent. I mean, he has a great social game going. He's likable. I like seeing him in the episode. I love when he says, Mon Juan. Anyway, Misha really wants Carson out. And that confuses me a little bit, you guys, because if she really felt that way, why didn't she go after him during her own HOH? I mean, she was helping on getting first Mariah, right? And then that changed. Then she moved on to Teddy, right? And then she's like, I'm going after Teddy. She was happy that Teddy got voted out. And then I remember that Misha didn't necessarily think Carson was a threat until Todrick put that thought into her head. Right? So, Todrick kind of, remember, he's all over the house. He's just saying things because Carson is Todrick's target. And I just find it so fascinating how he has influenced Misha's thought on who should be the next voted out or who would work in their favor, right? All right. So after all was said and done in this episode, NSYNC Chris nominated SNL Chris and Mariah. He said that the reason he gave was because he hadn't talked any game with either of them and wanted them to have the opportunity to fight versus backdooring them. Okay, that sounds fair. That sounds nice. Mariah is his target, and of course she feels discouraged because this is her second time going on the block. I hope it drives her to win the power of veto so we can see what happens next. Who would he put up next? Will he put up Carson? So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We know if Mariah comes down off the block, Misha will work NSYNC's Chris nerve to put up Carson. That's for sure. And if you didn't know, SNL Chris told us that he's ready to get his dukes up. He's ready to get his dukes up. He rolled up his sleeves and everything. I mean, he tries to be funny, you guys. And it's funny that he tries to be so funny, You know what I'm saying? And can I comment on how gross I found him digging into that community cake with his fork and double dipping? Just yuck. All right, so SNL Chris and Mariah are on the block. Can't wait to see who wins POV. And it continues to be a good game. I'm enjoying it. Going to the stuff I heard about the live feeds, I'll do this really quickly. Well, let me clarify that I didn't necessarily see all of this on the live feeds. But I watch other celebrity Big Brother reviewers. I listen to what they've shared on their lives and stuff. And there are two big things that I heard through the grapevine. Okay, so the first thing was that Lamar sharted in the bed. Apparently, he's lactose intolerant, and earlier that night, he ate something that didn't agree with his stomach. He ate beef jerky and all these other foods. It upset his stomach. It was a whole ordeal. He announced it to people in the bathroom, and he had to clean his sheets and take a shower and all that stuff. Okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing was some type of altercation happened leading NSYNC Chris to leave the house. Apparently, they put him in a hotel, and then he returned to the game. And so that may account for why the feeds were delayed. And the rumor of why this happened had to do with a comment that Mariah made to him, calling him a backup dancer to Justin Timberlake. I don't know if this is true. However, I could see this being insulting, because NSYNC Chris made it a point to tell America that he started NSYNC, right? He was very adamant and firm. I started NSYNC, And so, of course, we know, like when you think of NSYNC, the people I think of first is Justin Timberlake and Lance Bass, I think JC, I would recognize him, but yeah. And so I could see how someone could feel overlooked, by Justin Timberlake's shadow. Being in Justin Timberlake's shadow. I understand it. I could see that. So if she did make a comment like that, I could see where that would tick him off, right? I don't know if it's true or not. If I'm being fully transparent, I'm not willing to search through the live feeds to see if he made any additional comments or whatever. I just go with what's out there. Anyway, this to me would make sense as to why NSYNC Chris nominated Mariah, because of whatever that altercation was. What if it was a comment that she made or whatever? But they did have an altercation, and I believe that's part of the reason he nominated her, which makes it personal. Right? It's personal. All right, so tomorrow we'll see who wins the POV, and if I'm not mistaken, we'll see the next HOH crowned, and the game will continue to move at a fast pace over the next couple of weeks. I'll continue to do my best to keep up with the reviews. Yeah, I'd love any feedback, likes, comments, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen, give me a follow, subscribe, leave me a comment, leave me a message. You can find me by looking for Chatter Out Loud. I have this podcast, I tweet, and I'm on YouTube. So look for Chatter Out Loud and you'll find me. I also have links to where you can find me in the description. So check that out. Yeah. My name is Danielle and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.